So I just picked up a third job. It's actually at a bakery. I also have talked about this in other videos where I manage a jiu-jitsu school. I've been there for like 19 years training, teaching, running the kids program for like the last 12 years. Both of these jobs have nothing to do with filmmaking, photography, travel, but I think that they're both things I enjoy doing. It's really more of a financial decision. And what I mean is, outside of just alleviating the tax burden of being a 1099 person, self-employment tax, all those things, which are tough. It's a tough scrap to make that all work out. There's also the component of editing gives me a headache. And I don't mean that in like a metaphorical way. I mean that in the literal way. Like when I stare at my computer screen all day, it gives me a headache. And I guess you could also argue, well, why wouldn't you just take on more jobs and do more work, photography, filmmaking related? Quite honestly, I'm afraid of burnout, not only burnout on the macro scale from like editing a client project for 8, 10, 12 hours a day and then having no energy to work on my own passion work, but I'm afraid of burnout with just the idea of, it's not 40, 50, 60 hours a week working on client projects, because I've really kind of seen, even in my busiest times, which coincidentally last year was my busiest year ever in my 6 years of starting this production company, probably 10, 11 years of like taking on freelance gigs. Even that busy year with a little bit of extra funds in the bank, it didn't give me that much more wiggle room and freedom to just like crush and slay these personal passion projects. The feast or famine of running a sole proprietorship, single member LLC production company, it's real. This year started and it was my slowest 2 months maybe ever after my busiest year ever. So yeah, it's a grind. It's totally random. I might look back and regret it all, but you gotta work, you gotta hustle, you gotta pay the bills. I'm working with my hands. I'm learning stuff every day in the jobs outside of filmmaking, photography, and my just passion for travel and other stuff, music and whatnot, skateboarding. I got a million things. I have 2 ADHD. Yeah, so it's just about like staying busy and making sure that I'm not getting creatively burnout too, if that makes sense. The other key consideration with all of that, and I hope somebody could like weigh into this and prove me wrong, comment down below, like, comment, subscribe. No one is going to pay me to make the films I want to make, at least not now, not where I'm at skill-wise, not where I'm at with my network. Dare I even say like gear, but that's really aside. That's not, my gear is great. No one's going to pay me to make the films I want to make. I am starting to have a more crystallized vision of these films I want to make. And I think the key is, if I'm chasing client work and I'm working and editing, not 40, 50, 60 hours a week on that, well, guess what? That downtime, I'm not gonna have the creative bandwidth to go make those films. So, I mean, whereas I'm physically tired, or maybe I'm emotionally tired after teaching the kids, or physically tired from working a 10-hour shift at a bakery, at least my creative is there. I get to be at work with people I like working with, work with my hands, learn stuff, listen to good music, and just kind of come up with ideas. And then when I get home and I jump on the computer for 3-4 hours to like edit this documentary I'm working on, I just feel like it's just more refreshing. Again, I might look at this a year, 2 years from now and say, that was completely stupid, I was wrong, but that's where I'm at. No one's gonna pay me to make the films I wanna make. So I'm gonna make sure I got money in the bank and I can just go make them. And it's gonna be slow at first. It's gonna be a slog. It's gonna be a struggle, but that's what I'm doing. The other funny thing is, when I started making these YouTube videos to document my production company's ups and downs, I talked about one of the mistakes I made was not scaling back to part-time at my previous job. Instead of just saying, peace, see ya, I'm out. What a hero's journey this will turn into. The guy that during COVID went out on his own, struck out on his own to go make a creative career. My logic, my mentality being, if I'm gonna, struggle to get by, I'm gonna do it on my own terms. And I still hold true to that, but I think I should have scaled back to part-time at that job to, once again, alleviate the financial burden of needing my production company to pay all my bills. So that's like a two-part thing to quite literally working 3 jobs or working 2 jobs outside of my LLC. Yes, part-time jobs, but jobs nonetheless. So you gotta hustle, you gotta pay the bills too. Now, the next part of that, irony abounds, is that when I had my busiest year ever last year, and I definitely might have thought like, oh, this is the way it's gonna be, my name's out there now, I'm getting a lot of referrals, I even turned down a little bit of work. But starting this year as my slowest year, deciding to not wait for work and go out and just work part-time so I could pay the bills, so I wasn't struggling and suffering that financial dread, one thing that naturally happened is phone calls, emails, texts start coming in. Hey, can you shoot this? Can you shoot that? Are you interested in this? Are you interested in that? A couple media days, corporate headshots, a big social media shoot, like a 2-day staged social media shoot for a company I do work for. And it's just so ironic. Like, my head starts to say, well, if I just waited a month or two, I wouldn't have needed to work part-time. But instead, I flipped my perspective, where I've always thought about how and when I would bring on freelancers to take some of the burden of me needing to find the work, shoot the project, well, even like pre-production, and then shoot the project, and then edit, and then deliver, all the post-production, just myself to a client. So I've been bringing people on. I've actually brought someone on for the first 5 shoots. I don't want to say this year, but for these 5 shoots, all of which were kind of big shoots. And I used to just take all that, do it all myself. I would go, for example, do a big shoot on a Sunday or a Friday or whenever it was. And then I'd spend like 2.5, 3 days editing. Well, now we're looking at 4 days all in, and you tag on some, emails and correspondence back and forth before, after. That's like a week of your time. So it sounds crazy to say, oh, well, I was dead, and then you got all this work, and then you brought people on where you complained about money or paying the bills or income for your company, the production company, being an issue. And it's like, yes, because now there's no better time than now to experiment and see how I do that, the best way to do it, who I can bring on, who I can trust, who I'm fine paying. And I mean, knock on wood, but the first experience with that, out of like these first 5 big jobs that I've got starting, mid-March they started, was like a huge success. It cut everything in half. Actually the shoot day was cut in half. All my editing time, even like my stress levels of needing to edit for 2.5, 3 days from this big project, cut in half. So I hope that works out in like a sustainable way. I'm not saying I want to like hire on multiple people, full-time people, or even like consistent freelancers like all the time. Like, I still enjoy holding the camera. I still enjoy shooting. I still enjoy editing, but I think there's a limit. So then the second piece of that is actually funny, because when I first started like taking on, I'm talking like freelance, taking on like $50, $100, $150, $200 like engagement shoots with my Canon T5i 10, 11 years ago. When I first started doing that, I feel like I was at, not the ground floor, but like early on in the YouTube like sphere of, you can DIY, you can do it yourself. Like, you can become a solo filmmaker. You can earn 6 figures. Like, that was so big 8, 9, 10, 11 years ago. 6 figures, I don't know what that means anymore, but like, that was so huge of this kind of like, I mean, the word filmmaker was bastardized then and has kind of continued until now. I mean that in the sense that a lot of it's just videography. Yeah, I remember like thinking like, wow, this sounds cool. You mean I can potentially strike out on my own and make a living with a camera? Yes. But again, I come back to that word sustainable, because to, have the not only network, but almost like the people skills to communicate, to talk to people, to land those jobs, the referrals, just to get that piece of the puzzle in place is difficult, let alone shoot it all in a good way, edit it all, like do everything yourself. It's just really hard. I'm not saying it's not sustainable. Being at the YouTube sphere of that whole scene, I don't know what to call it, that whole like environment, that world of you can do it yourself, 6 figures, be a solo filmmaker, I think misled me a little bit. I don't think it's all BS, but I don't know. It's just something I think about a lot, and maybe where I'm at now, I can start to think about it by bringing on freelancers while not hiring a million people and like, scaling my company to anything crazy, which is never what I did this for anyway. Maybe there's like a happy marriage where, the tween shall meet and I can kind of meet in the middle. Yeah, I mean, I'm not jazzed about all my shoots to this day. I'm trying to be a little bit more selective. I am working my ass off. I'm hustling. I don't like the feeling of not knowing where your next paycheck or, your income's gonna come from. I don't know, man. I just don't want to have to constantly wonder. I want to make the films I want to make, and I know that's going to be slow and it's going to take time for me to get in that rhythm, but even in this short little stint of doing it this way, I am seeing success. I'm seeing a little bit of a rejuvenated approach, a fresh set of eyes when I'm editing, more of an excitement to go out and shoot on my own. I'm back in good habits of like birding almost every morning. Yes, I love my wildlife photography, videography, filmmaking stuff, aspiring wildlife filmmaker. Getting out on the trails every day, still like super physically active, but also like creatively, I feel kind of locked in now. And I know that's crazy. It's like you're working 70 hours a week and you feel like refreshed, it's like, yeah, I do. So that was it.